Hello and welcome back, my dear students of class 12. With me, your tutor Rebecca, in this psychology class. Today we will be continued with the same chapter, that is memory and forgetting. In the last class, we have discussed enhancing memory. Now let me recap what we have discussed. We have discussed how to improve the memory, that is mnemonics. Mnemonic is a technique that helps someone better to remember. Under this mnemonic, we have also discussed the strategies to improve our memory using the mnemonic images, and other is using the organization. Now, using images of mnemonic is a visual image that we create ourselves in our own understanding in order to make easier to remember. And under this visual image of mnemonics, we have discussed the two methods, that is keyword method and method of loci. Now the keyword method is very great, is very useful to remember the vocabulary words, and the method of loci, the word loci means places. Now this method refers to a great way to memorize or to remember items in a serial order. Now moving on to mnemonics using organization. Now when I say organization, it basically means organizing something, organizing the actions of something, or arranging something in a order, in a certain order. Now, mnemonics using organization refers to imposing a certain order on the material you want to remember. Now, through using this mnemonic organization, there can be of two techniques again, that includes chunking and first letter technique, all right? Now, this method of chunking is a process. It is a process by which the mind divides a large pieces of information into a smaller unit that is chunked so that it will be easier to remember in short-term memory. Now, while describing the features of short-term memory, we have noted before in the previous classes that chunking is the process to increase the storage capacity of short-term memory, right? Now, when I say chunking, it is a process. It is a process to make the larger units into smaller units. For example, you want to remember a credit card number, say like 2001, 2002, and 444. Now, in order to break this down, you have to make it into 3 digits. Now, in this manner, we can break this 11-digit number into small 3-digit numbers so that it would be easier to remember. Now, moving on to the next technique, that is first letter technique, or the acronyms. Now, in this technique, you need to pick the first letter of each word that you want to remember and arrange them to form another word or a sentence. For instance, colors of a rainbow can be remembered in such a way that VIBGYOR. V stand for violet, I for indigo, B for blue, G for green, Y for yellow, O for orange, and R for red. In this manner, we can understand, we can make this technique useful in order to retain the information. Now, associating the first letter of each item with word or a phrase or a rhyme is very helpful and can take information easier to recall. However, these mnemonic strategies for memory enhancement seems to be very simplistic, and perhaps people experience difficulties while memorizing these techniques. So the psychologists have applied some of the strategies and have given some suggestions, which include engage in deep level processing. It means that if you want to remember or if you want to memorize something very well, you have to involve yourself into deep understanding. You need to involve a more meaningful analysis of yourself, say through images, thinking, or associating the information to the previous knowledge, and so that it can lead to better recall, or it may be a greater way, it may be useful to better understanding. Now, in this manner, in this way, we can put the new information part of your existing knowledge, and remembering information will be increased in this manner. Now, the second strategy is to minimize interference. Now, when we talk about interference, in the previous classes, we have already discussed what is interference. It is a major cause of forgetting, and therefore we should try to avoid this interference. Now, interference is caused when similar material are learned in a sequence, so we have to avoid this interference in order to arrange the information in such a way that we would not learn similar object after the other. Now, one way to minimize interference is to sleep while studying. Now, when you study, at night when you study, it's better to sleep after studying your notes or a material, since people can't learn new material while sleeping. Now, the third strategy is given by the psychologists is give yourself enough retrieval cues. Now, each one of us has a moment that where we tend to forget something, where we had something in our mind, but we are unable to remember that. And we told to ourselves to do that, but for some reason, the information just doesn't come out in our mind at the time we need it. So we often try to remember that particular thing, and we try to give ourselves a hint to remember, and this hint can be referred to as retrieval cues. Now, what is retrieval cues? Retrieval cues are a stimuli that can be either a thing or an event that is stored in our long-term memories, okay? And these retrieval cues can help us to remember or to recall things which will make easier to remember. So these are some of the strategies that the psychologists have suggested to improve our knowledge, our memory. Now, on the other hand, in order to improve the students' memory, in order to improve their memory, another strategy was given by Thomas and Robinson, which they call it as PQRST method. PQRST method. Now, this method was given by Robinson and Thompson in order to improve the students' memory. Now, this method is a method to read a textbook. So that the information that you have read can really enter into your long-term memory. This method has, however, shown that the readers can understand better, and this understanding will make the students the ability to recall the information. Now, in other words, the readers is more likely to learn more and more of the material if she is reading. All right. Now, let's see how does this method work. Now, this method has 5 steps to follow. Now, P stands for preview, Q stands for questions, R stands for read or reading, S for self-recite or self-recitation, and T stands for test. Now, the middle 3 steps apply to every section within a chapter, while the first and the last steps apply to the chapter itself. Now, you may have find in your textbook, when you read your textbook, you may find that textbooks are compiled in such a way which makes this method easy to apply using introductory passage and questions at the end. Now, let's briefly discuss what is this method. Now, preview, first of all, is the preview of all the chapters, in the entire chapters. Now, you have to read the chapter introduction, pay attention to the headings of the contents of the chapter and to the subsections. Now, after that, read the summary at the end of the chapter, because it usually tells what you have learned in that chapter. Now, the point is to get an idea of the main topics and the sections of the chapter. Moving on to the next step, that is questions. As you read through all the chapters, the entire chapters, you have to start question yourself by asking, what am I supposed to learn in this chapter, in this section? Now, this would help you to get your brain into sync, to relate it with other information with the topic being discussed. Now, the third step is to read. In these steps, you actually have to read the chapter. Now, you have to look for the answer of the question that you have raised. Now, you have to do it carefully, think about the meaning, the importance of the topics, and after that, relate it to other things. And also, you can do some underlining or may do some highlighting in order to remember the main topics and then later on summarize it later. Now, the fourth step is to self-recite or self-recitation. Once you finished reading, now it's time to reflect back on the main ideas that you have learned. Now, in this step, you have to repeat and recite what you have learned about yourself, aloud to yourself, and check back against the text whether you have missed out something or not, and make sure that you didn't miss them out any information because you haven't learned that certain topics. Only then you have to move on to the next session. The 5th step and the final step is to test. Now, this step is the best way to test yourself. As you have finished the chapter, it's time to really test how much you have you are able to understand, or how much you have learned. Now, you have to think about the relevance of what you have learned and how it all fits together, or how many of the main ideas that you have learned and able to remember or to understand. Now, so these are the steps, the technique of PQRST, which was proposed by Robinson and Thomas in order to help the students, or designed to help the students optimize their reading and learning. Now, researchers have also tested this method and found it really workful, really good. And particularly, self-recitation seems to be very effective if properly studied. As is the questioning step, after all, this makes sense because it is putting your brain into gear and warming it up warming it up before you start. Now, therefore, there is no one method, there is no method that can solve all problems relating to retention and improving your memory overnight. So it is important to use these memory strategies, the memory techniques, in order to improve your memory, and on top of that, you have to keep a good study habits, like maintaining time management and organization in order to maintain your study habits. Also, this will help you to retain information, whatever you have studied. And make sure you are not simply memorizing the materials, you are not just memorizing the notes, but you are working towards a deeper understanding of the subject. So here on this note, we have come to an end of our unit, that is memory and forgetting. In the next class, we will be continuing with a new chapter. Till then, take care and stay safe.